Do you know who it is?
We do. We're not going to say until he comes in because you never know with this guy. I mean,
he's here. He's here and he's ready to go. He's here. He's ready to go.
It's the ultimate in unpredictability with this human being. And there he is.
Doug Gottlieb. What's going
on, Gottlieb? Fresh out of the bed. Fresh out of – we just woke him up, and boy, does he look good.
Hi, boys.
Gottlieb's going to be slurring.
I would only do this for Rob.
Yes, well, we know that. We know that.
Is this better? This is better.
Yes, much better. Much better. Doug, are you coming to Indy?
No.
You're not?
No.
So you've been home. You've been in California here for the whole stretch.
So this is the weird thing, right, about my life. So I was like the only one to why am I so bad at this? I was the only – I got my iPad stolen yesterday. So
you did? Where did you leave it? Where did you leave it that it got stolen?
In my car.
Really?
But it was like a smash and grab. No, but smash and grab, but they didn't have to smash. Well, my car, I have the keys that are like, this is terrible. I have to do this. I'm sorry. I can't hold it.
You're good.
My car is one of those where if you have the key, anyway, I don't know when it happened. It might have happened at basketball practice or whatever, but I had 2 bags in the back of my car and they were gone. So one had some of my daughter's stuff in it. One had my iPad. Anyway, so that would have been much more stable and better, and I could have put a filter on this so I look better. Anyway,
you look great.
No, so here's the crazy thing about my life. All my games I did this year, I did like 30-something games, radio and TV. Every one of them I did in person. Everybody else was home, doing it from their house, and based upon the games I did, the radio companies, the TV companies I did, we did them all in person. Now, and then I was in person for the Big Ten tournament. Now, people are starting to go in person, and I'm in studio in Los Angeles for Westwood One. So, whatever. It was actually awesome this year to do things in person. I don't know if you guys have experienced this in terms of on your show. It's because guys have been coaches. Coaches are social animals, and because of it, I feel like when you talk to them now, especially if you're in person, they won't let you go. Right. Like coaches who you normally go to, and Jeff knows them because they all hate Jeff. That's a joke. Anyway, normally some guys you go to do a game and they talk to you and they give you like 2 minutes. Some guys will take you out to eat, whatever. This year they couldn't take you out to eat, but you go down and you talk to them and they wouldn't shut up. Right. It's like almost too much because they really hadn't had that social interaction. And for coaches, they're used to having it when they recruit. They're used to having it on road trips. They're used to having it in team meetings, and all that stuff was gone. So it was a little different.
Hey, the coach that you enjoy talking to the most is who? Who's the guy that there are a lot of them, I know, but rattle off a few that you just love that are social, that are easy to deal with. Like Scott Drew might be number 1 for me in terms of easy to deal with. We'll give you whatever you need, the best. So
I have a shameless plug. I have a podcast as well. It's different than yours. And I do these kind of long form, like I did Paul Mills, of course, who's a Scott Drew assistant. Yeah. I did Brian Odom, who we have kind of similar backgrounds a little bit. Most of them, I don't know. I can't think of most of them, right? Most of them you go and see him. I've known Brian Dutcher forever, and I won't talk to him for 7 months, and I sit down next to him before a game, or I call him on the phone, and he's one of those guys that continues a conversation as if we just had a conversation yesterday, and he wanted to keep telling it to me. He's thoroughly and completely enjoyable.
All right, can I go the other route?
No, I can't say that. The people who I don't.
Come on, Gottlieb, get tough. What do you do?
That's what I'm saying. There are guys.
Who do you not get along with? Who do you? What? I'll give you mine. Who are the head coaches that you don't? Are there any that you don't get along with? There have to be.
I'm sure there's guys that hate behind the back, but I don't know. Look, I had a long time ago, I had a little beanie beef with Steve Alford. He was at Iowa, and I have a couple friends that are in relatively high place at Iowa, and I had been told, hey, they were trying to get out of his contract. This was the year he left and went to New Mexico. And so me and Andy Katz, we used to write a column for ESPN the magazine, and I put it there, don't be surprised if it's his last year. right? So he calls me like before the game against like Illinois. This is back when Illinois was really good. And he calls me from the locker room and he's just cursing me up and down like, I'm not leaving here. Well, anyway, since that, and so then I covered him in New Mexico and he was always great to me. So most of these guys are pussycats. There are some guys I'm sure that don't like me. Jeff, this is actually my like goal when I call a game is you can't tell which coach I like and which coach I don't like.
Yeah.
You know,
if you do that, then that's the key, right? Try to be objective.
Right. Or like for the Bet Rivers folks, and it's like try and figure out which one I got money on. It's like the old Brent Musburger thing.
Yep.
Who's Brent have money on? So I'm trying to think if there's anybody I have beef with.
Like I haven't talked to my probably 3 right now would be I haven't talked to Calipari more than once or twice in the last 12 years.
What's his issue with you?
We don't have time, I don't think, on this. I mean, it goes back like 12 years ago. The first story I wrote was, remember when they were playing Tennessee, Memphis? They were both 1 and 2 in the country.
Yeah.
And basically there had been a bunch of shit that happened in the last week or two. Like Pierre Niles punched a fan in the stands at UAB. Robert Dozier was accused of hitting his ex-girlfriend. All these things. So I wrote a big column saying, hey, Cal, like, make sure that you keep these guys, in at whatever, 11 o'clock, something like that. Like, don't let them run around town at 2 a.m. in Memphis, right? Like keep them, under control, I guess, would be the biggest thing.
So he said racist or something.
And he had Derek Kellogg call me and he said, Cal has a message for you. You're not welcome in Memphis. And I said, what, you can't like ban me from an entire city. Like I'll be there this weekend for the game. And that's kind of how the first one started. And then the second one was on Abdul Gaddy. Remember him, the point guard who played with Avery Bradley in Seattle?
Yeah. So
I wrote a story that his mother worked for FedEx and the COO, the number 2 person at FedEx, started recruiting his mother. And I had it on the record. That was the one that he was really upset about because
that never happened in Memphis. They never had FedEx helping them.
Right. Well, and this woman, the mother was like a woman who was making like $15 an hour and like, not a high level employee. And obviously David Bronzak had never called her before. And he literally called her trying to convince Abdul Gaddy to go to Memphis. And I had it from the mother. I had it from somebody else. So that's a ding. Yeah.
That's a ding. Yep.
What's the ding?
It's pretty standard for Goodman on these shows in the morning. He doesn't know how to turn his notifications off now.
I forget, Doug. Like, it's like you. Come on. You forget a lot.
I feel bad because I can't seem to get the camera sideways right and make it look good, but that's okay. Here's my Cal story, right? Mine's like the opposite. So
okay.
I was doing a game in Memphis once, and I'm literally at the table, and I get a tap on the shoulder. And what was the little guy who's super nice, who's the SID there?
Lamar Chance.
Yeah.
Great dude.
Lamar taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, hey, Cal wants to see you. I was like, well, there's a game in like 6 minutes. I'm on air in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Real quick. So he has this little office in the arena just right off the floor. And I go in there and he goes, he's like, hey, man, you just keep doing your thing. You're awesome. You're not Jay bias. Jay's so biased against us or whatever. It was clearly tainting the jury pool, right? Just trying to get me motivated to be like Mr. Memphis. Anyway, so you like fast forward maybe a year, 2 years. It was, I believe, after the Final Four team. And they were really young. And so it was early in the season. And I said something like, hey, if you want to beat Memphis, you got to put them in the half court and make them think. It's a young team.
Yeah.
So he doesn't call me. He calls my boss and says, that's racist. And I was like, so I call him. And I was like, Cal, what are you doing, man? Why are you calling my boss? Like, if you have an issue, just call me. You got my number. He's like, you can't say that about young black kids and making them think. It implies they're dumb. I was like,
what?
Cal, the sport is higher percent, like 75% black. Like, so anytime you say you got to make a player think, technically you can be racist. Like, how would you beat your team? Self-scout. It's like, well, that's different. No. How would you beat your team? And he's like, well, I'd probably slow it down. I was like, why? Because they hadn't been like, oh, because you want to make up things. Like, yeah, but that's not the point. You can't say that. I was like, yes, you can. Anyway, he's been fine to me. I was there when they had the perfect season, and he was really cool, and he was kind of awkward on TV. I mean, I don't know. I don't mind Cal. I get the whole thing.
Yeah, for me,
some of these guys is like it just depends on the day of the week.
Yes,
or they heard what you said from something else. They took a tweet you said and ran with it. Most of them are pretty cool.
Yeah. Mike Anderson and Mark Godfrey would be the other two.
They don't like you?
No, those are the other two that I know for sure. I mean, I'm sure there's others, but
I can't imagine why Mike Anderson wouldn't like you, Jeff.
I just said I didn't think he was a good hire at St. John's.
I'm shocked.
It's okay. Everybody thought he was a good hire at Arkansas, and it wasn't, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Everybody's like, dude, that's going to work. That's awesome. I mean, like,
right. I mean, he didn't do it at Arkansas, the perfect place for him. How is he going to do it at St. John's? That's fair, wasn't it? Like,
fair.
No New York ties. I said they should have hired Paul Hewitt instead. New York ties.
I really like Paul Hewitt. He's a brilliant guy. Go ahead.
All right, Doug. Let's get in the tournament a little bit. Rob, go ahead. Get us started with the tournament.
What matchup are you looking forward to the most here, Doug?
Baylor Nova, right? And I think that's pretty.
They don't have Colin Gillespie, right?
I'm aware. I was in bed. I wasn't under a rock. The thing is, I saw I know you don't. Goodman doesn't like him. It's like professional rivalry. You don't like Cats, but this is
I do like Cats. No, we're good now.
You told me you don't like him.
I do like Cats.
You just told me yesterday like that.
That's bullshit. I like Andy Katz now. He didn't like me 10 years ago. We're good now. We've been good for like 5 years. We both kind of had to deal with the same editor at ESPN who sucked.
Okay. I have nothing. Just for the record, I have nothing bad to say about any editors, and including Andy Glockner, who's a good friend, who's my editor. So anyway, so Cats had like Villanova, one of like the last teams in his like power ranking. Like, look, I know they don't have Colin Gillespie, and I'm guessing I don't think they're nearly talent level of Baylor, okay? But I don't want to play Villanova in the NCAA tournament. No fucking way do I want to play against that team. Sorry. Anybody who says otherwise is an idiot.
No, you're right. You're right.
They know how to win basketball games, and they are going to make you play their way, period. It's not like Loyola Chicago, only Villanova's been better and has slightly better players. So I get it.
Can they beat Baylor?
I don't think so, but I think it could make it a miserable experience for the Baylor Bears. Where they're like looking like, hey, they don't have their point guard and they're just okay, and we're loaded and we're good. And like, okay, but you have to. The big thing is you have to beat them. They're not gonna beat themselves. They're gonna do what they do. They can be tough as hell defensively. Offensively, they're gonna get all those paint touches and 2-foot stops and bounce passes, and it's annoying as crap because they're just really good. So that's the one to me that I think. Again, I think Baylor's really good. I think they win the game. I'm just saying. Under teams I don't want to play. I don't know. Jay's kind of dominated college basketball here the last 5 or 6 years. And his team is I watched him play this weekend, and they're just like wired. They're just completely locked in on their assignments. Without Colin, they're not winning a national championship. I don't think they'll win this game, but that's the matchup I want to see, because if there's a team that can do it down a man, that's the team.
Yeah, and the way that they've been using Jeremiah Robinson Earl is very promising.
Yeah.
Just give him the ball and let him go. I'm curious. What do you think? How long do you think it'll take Scott to go small, and go away from having Flo Thom or Everyday John guarding him?
I don't know. That's where do you play your big guys in that is really hard. But then I don't know about Scott and his ego. Scott doesn't have any ego in life, so I don't think he has any ego. I mean, I would say pretty quickly you got to take a look at it. I do think. One of the things that these coaches do a bad job of, or I saw a couple of coaches do a bad job of last week, is you got to take a look at your different lineups in the first half. For example, Illinois, they went small with like 2 minutes left to go in the game. If you couldn't tell you had a problem first 5 minutes of the game, like I'm sure Brad Underwood's like, oh shit, we got a problem here. It's not like, hey, just run the offense and it'll work. You're like,
right, try something different early. see if it works. So then you go to it. I mean, listen, the bottom line is they were better without Kofi in that game. We knew that. Like everybody,
but they didn't. They played Benishvili a little bit, and then they never took them both off the court. And I wonder what it would look like off the court. Same thing for Texas. You know, Texas blocked all those shots. Okay, but the big guys were kind of useless. They also, neither team used their guys right in terms of attacking that. Anyway, my point is, I would guess rather early, Rob, to answer your question. If it was me, I'd take a look at it, you know, somewhere after the first 4 minutes and take a look and say, all right, how does it work? How do the matchups work? What are they going to do against it? I mean, because that other guy, he's been spending the whole time figuring out, all right, if they go big, this is what we're doing. If they go small, this is what we're doing. The problem with going small is their guards can post.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And the good thing about Baylor is all their guys can play post defense, but it's just different when you know, I mean, my post defense was my guy gets it, I'm just fouling. You know, I get 5.
You don't look like you're not exactly built like Davion Mitchell. Doug.
I'm pretty strong, dude. There's a mouse in the house variety to it. Plus, remember, those guys play in the post every day every day. You go to their practice, all their guards play out of the post. So you're doing it, you know, 1 week leading up. They're doing it every day of the season, every day of their career. So it's a little bit different, regardless of how you're built. It's just it's a different footwork. It's a different type of leverage. It's very, very different. Anyway.
Yeah, and the Villanova guards are also bigger. Like Justin Moore, 6'4", Caleb Daniels is 6'4", so they're bigger guys. The matchup I'm looking forward to the most is Michigan and Florida State, because I just don't know how Michigan's going to deal with that switching defense.
It's hard, and you know they do have. So okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask you what do you think Michigan does there?
Huh? I
was just going to ask you what you think Michigan does there.
Well, I mean, I think obviously they throw it inside to Hunter. They try and create mismatches. They throw it to Hunter. That's the first thing. You know, he's very good, and he's tough, and he makes all the spaces, and he plays hard. I will say, like, he's turning over his right shoulder. I don't have the numbers, like 85, 90% of the time. I think it'll be hard for him because they have a lot of length. I think it'd be really hard for Mike Smith, their point guard, because he's little.
Yes.
He's like one of those, like, he's little all over.
Yep.
Little. And I'm not the biggest dude in the world. And when you play against long dudes, like, that's hard. Now, you had a whole week to figure out what you want to do against switching, which is interesting because that was the thing with Illinois. They were really loading up on the basketball, and they were switching everything. And Illinois never once, like, back cut, curl cut, screen, rescreen, like, all of these things are the basic rules to how you play. And they did none of them. They just tried, let's just throw the ball inside to Kofi, like he's Akeem Olajuwon. So I'll be interested to see Michigan. You have Phil Martelli's coached 1 million games. And Juwan Howard's played 1 million games. Now, the NBA philosophy in beating switching is different than the college philosophy. The NBA philosophy is get it to your best player and get their weakest player on your best player, and then get the hell out of the way, right? That's the problem with that is there's not the space in college to do it. And they don't have nearly as much space without livers. Now, they used what's the kid from Wake Forest who hit all the shots?
Johnny Brown.
Yeah, they used Johnny Brown, and you know, they used him as a stretch forward in the last game, and that worked. The problem is, like, he wasn't starting for a reason, right? And the reason is defensively he's not as good. There's not as much toughness there as Isaiah Livers provided. So they're down a guy, and their point guard is really little, and Florida State is really big, and they have dude after dude after dude to throw at Dickinson. I'm with you. I think that's a tremendous game, and it's one of those in layup lines you'd be like, wow, Florida State, that looks like that's the all airport team. My only hesitance with Florida State, and everybody loves Coach Ham, is like, show me the last game, big game in the NCAA tournament they won, right? That 1 year was VCU. I mean, they had the VCU game, and they just missed layups, and that was a good bunch. This is a great defensive bunch. They can get a little bored on slower paced games. Like if you go back to that Notre Dame game they lost. I happened to be home on a Saturday morning. I had a game on Sunday, and I watched that whole thing, and I was like, they're going to lose this game just because they didn't come out ready, and they get down, and Notre Dame was, slowing the hell out of them. if I'm them, some of these teams I'm them, I just press right away to wake my guys up to kind of flex my muscles. And I think Florida State wins, but I could be wrong. Michigan, that's a really well coached team, and they got a whole week to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Who do you have winning? I mean, are you Gonzaga, Baylor final like everybody else?
I actually had Gonzaga, Illinois, but now it'd be Gonzaga, Baylor.
Yeah. If we get that one, which everybody wants. I mean, the crazy part, again, we said this yesterday, is like everybody wants Gonzaga, Baylor. If you had said that 2 years ago, people would have laughed at you. I think Baylor wins that game. I really do.
Because they're better defensively?
And they're deeper. Like, I just – Gonzaga, to me, they got 5 dudes. And then after that, I just don't know how much they have that's impact. I think Baylor goes 7 or 8 deep. They bring Matthew Meyer off the bench.
I love Matthew Meyer.
He's awesome. I mean, he's awesome. Like, they just – I don't know. I just like their 8-man rotation is strong, where to me, if somehow like Corey Kispert's not having a night, which he's going to have a hard time against those guards. Like, he hasn't seen anybody like them in a long time, if at all, this year.
True. I'm not sure they've seen anybody like him. Look, we can go back and forth, and we obviously have another week to figure out if that happens. But yeah, that would be, I've been on the Gonzaga thing. I didn't discover them, but when I watched them play early in the year, and I was told Jalen Suggs couldn't shoot, and then I watched him bang a bunch of threes down early in the year, and I was like, I thought you said he couldn't shoot. Like, well, he needs to develop it. Like,
he's streaky. Yeah.
Okay. And he has no fear of the moment.
No,
right?
No.
And then Kispert and Timmy are just awesome. Ajayi's awesome.
Yep.
I just really like their team.
No, they're awesome. They're
a little bit better offensively. Baylor's a little bit better defensively.
Right.
And kind of away we go. I think Loyola Chicago is going to the Final Four.
Same.
You might be right. Listen, we all have them. I mean, listen, anybody can come out of that Midwest, to me, other than Oregon State got screwed because there's no Tinkle and Hinkle this week. So I think the 3 men's.
Doug, let me ask you this. What is it about Loyola's defense in your mind that makes them so good on that end of the floor?
So if you go to Loyola's locker room, you go to their website, they have in their locker room, he calls it their culture terms or something, but it's basically all the terms that they use and tells you how they play defense, right? They switch to deny, for example. They're just so freaking disciplined in what they do.
Yeah.
So the basic college style, you would call it loading to the ball. Okay, which means when you have the ball on the wing, everybody on the team on the defense is on the midline, right? So you're looking. It looks like you're looking at a zone, and everywhere, and then you pass the ball, and they switch to deny. They get up and switch, and they're aggressive in it defensively. It just feels like there's a 6th guy on the court with how they're not just switching but rotating and talking, and they're putting 2 on the ball every time you come off a ball screen, but then they're rotating out of it, and it's going to take a ton of discipline to hit the short roller. So if you set a pick and roll, you can't roll all the way basket. You short roll, catch, face up, attack, or look to the opposite corner. Illinois didn't look opposite corner once. Now it's a hard pass if you don't make it, but you got to throw skip passes because they're so loaded up. That ball has to go from one side to the other. If you throw it to the top of the key, they're too good at rotating. So I think it's an appreciation for they know how they play. They scout the hell out of you, and they play to their fundamentals, how they've been taught. And again, if you look at those terms and you know what they mean, it's exactly how they play. And I think their talent's a little bit better than it was 2 years ago overall. Bigger bodies and allows them to switch better. But basically they're switching 1 through 4, and then they're stinking with Krutwig, and he's a pretty good rim protector. And then they just play to their strengths and play 5-as-1 defensively. And again, what Illinois tried to do is the exact wrong way to try and beat it. They're like, let's try and switch and then beat guys off the dribble and go one-on-one. Like, you're not going one-on-one. You're going 1-on-4 or 5. There's too many arms and legs there. And anytime they scored, it was like fool's gold. So yeah, that's the kind of the basic layman's way of saying it. How about UCLA? Their games got easier as they went. That was weird.
They got a great draw, but you got to play in the first 4. You get Tom Izzo. They looked like they were going to lose that one for a while, and I give Mick a lot of credit. We had him on yesterday morning. Think about what UCLA has been through, right? Like they weren't able to practice till almost last of all the teams. He loses Chris Smith. He loses, obviously, Dacian Nix at last minute, and somehow he's in the Sweet 16. I mean, honestly, it's an amazing job this year.
He's a really good basketball coach. Yeah, no, I remember I was talking to Mike Lewis. I was like, Mike, can I come watch practice? He's like, we're not practicing. What do you mean not practicing? Like, we can't practice. And then after they did practice, I was like, Mike, can I get a practice tape? Can I watch them? Can I see your guys? He's like, no. What do you mean? It's like, we're not filming it. We don't film it. I was like, why? He's like, well, 1, because it's terrible. And 2, because there's so many restrictions and we try and do everything. If we tape it and there's video evidence of us doing the wrong thing, they're going to shut us down again. Right? So this is a real
man, it's classic though. I mean, that's why the Pac-12 did, it was bad early for a reason, right? I mean, Cal, Stanford, UCLA.
Stanford suck. Well,
right.
Stanford shouldn't suck, but they did.
Stanford would have been a tournament team, to be honest. They would have been a tournament team.
What happened to them at the end of the year, though?
Well, Zaire kind of checked out, checked back in, checked out again. That's hard to do. Like when you got your most talented player, your star freshman, who isn't completely locked in because, frankly, it's not a regular season. I mean, they weren't on their campus. They weren't ever in their dorms for the first however many months. It's hard. And you got kids – like I love Zaire as a kid. But, like, you got people all over him. You got agents around him saying your stock's going down.
He needs to go to the NBA draft now before people figure out he's a very average basketball player.
I think he's better than that, Doug. But I wouldn't say he's a lottery pick or anything of that. But, same thing with Brandon Boston. Like, go now. Terrence Clark, go now. Because, honestly, are they going to be much better next year, or are you exposed even more?
Wait, so if you're exposed, you actually agree with me. They're not that good. And the more they play, the more we realize they're not that good. Like,
right, so go.
Like again, I watched Zaire play in high school. I watched the game they beat Mater Dei. I was there. I liked him, but then he played like the exact same player when I saw him the last game of the season, or one last game of the season against USC. Right. He's taking hard mid-range shots. He's not passing crisp. He doesn't move smartly without the ball. Right, like he
looks the part. Right, they all look.
He looked like a freshman.
Zaire,
which is okay, but he didn't look like somebody like, man, I got to put my first-round draft pick behind him. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think that the thing is in the NBA, everybody wants those versatile forwards, and the guys I just mentioned are 3 of them, right? Brandon Boston, Terrence Clark, Zaire Williams. There aren't a lot of guys that look like them in terms of that have that 6'7", 6'8", long, athletic, with Terrence Clark, certainly. Brandon Boston has kind of more of like the Brandon Ingram game.
Yes, except for here's the thing. Okay, so you take Scotty at Florida State, right?
Scotty Barnes, yeah. He can't shoot. Yeah.
Okay, but he can guard, right?
And he plays hard as shit.
Yes. So those are 2 definable traits, whereas you're going to shoot better. And he's not Michael Kidd Gilchrist. It's not like, he needs a chiropractor after every jump shot. So to me, I don't think it's close. I take Scotty over those 2 because those 2 have to learn to do something they've never really done. When we get in the NBA, the first way you're on or off the floor is based upon can you guard somebody? Because if not, it's just fresh meat.
Yeah.
And so that's to me why he's so much better prospect than they are. I like this USC team. I don't know what you guys think about them.
Yeah, give us your take. USC, Oregon, 2 teams you know pretty well from being out there on the West Coast. Break down that matchup for us. Where does it go?
Well, Oregon beat them last time. Oregon spreads you out. That's the problem. Is where do you put the brothers? Who do they guard? Because now they got, and they're pretty agile for their size, but
yeah, they are.
Like you got to go out and guard like 20 feet away. And Dana's a witch with what he's doing in terms of spacing and spreading you out. And now look, they shot the eyes out of against Iowa, but Iowa had no chance in that game, like none.
Yeah, they can't.
And now look, if we're realistic about it, I don't know if Oregon beats VCU. I think they do, but I'm like, we don't know that VCU thing can be. And I mean, Oregon caught a break there, right? You don't have to play. You got fresh legs. Iowa doesn't get a chance to see you and scout you in person. Obviously not playing for that long a period of time. They could have been rusty. They weren't. So I don't think they're as good as they looked at, but they could have beaten the Lakers the other night. They were so good.
How
just
put in the
Duarte's the real deal. I mean, he's really, really good. Since they've been all healthy, they're 11-3. And then now for USC, they're smart. I think Jason Hart's put them in that 2-3 zone, and because they're so much bigger, that works for them. It's going to be hard to zone Oregon. But they're going to leave somebody open in rotations. But USC, they have Drew Peterson, he was very light recruited, went to Rice, and then he kind of blew up at Rice, and then he transferred in. Now he's legit 6'8". Taj Edey's he's 24, almost 25 years old. Like he wasn't a great player, but he's been around and he can make shots, and he's a bigger dude. And then of course you got Ethan and Isaiah, who are tremendous, and they have great length. And I'm glad Isaiah got some of his due. Like Isaiah's been the guy who seems to love it a little bit more, want it a little bit more, better, more spacing.
Yeah.
He's just not as talented as his brother. And his brother is a very, very skilled player, and they're big and long. That's a hard zone. That's the right team. I don't like zones, but if I had them, I'd probably zone too, just because they cover so much space, and what they don't cover, they make up for their length. I think it'll be a good game, but I mean, I will point out that Oregon just whooped them a couple weeks ago, and I think it's more matchup based than anything.
Creighton, Gonzaga, Doug?
No shot.
No shot. No shot.
That's what I've been trying to tell him. I've been trying to tell Jeff that. They're basically the same team. One team has better players.
It's not just that. It's the way in which Creighton plays is like Gonzaga light. They run great stuff, and they're trying to get mismatches and get Ballack on a big on Ballack and whatever. Like, fine. In order for Creighton to win and play good, they have to score in the 80s. You want to score in the 80s with Gonzaga? Like, you don't want to play a higher possession. You need to turn this thing into a grinder, and I don't think you can turn. That's what Baylor will do when they play them. I don't like the matchup.
I don't love it either. I say the only way they got a shot is if Ballack makes like 7 threes. And he's got to be aggressive.
Has he had a game this year?
No, but he should. He should. I mean, if I'm McDermott, I'm running him off everything and telling him you have to shoot the ball. Don't keep moving it. I love the fact that you're unselfish, but we don't need that in this game. We need you to shoot the damn ball here.
Well, what's really hurt him is the emergence of Bishop along with Jefferson. So he's playing the 3 a lot. When he's been great, he's been like trail 4 or 5, whatever. And he's like 6'3" or something. And like I said, Greg's really good with how he uses them. The problem with playing that way is he can't really guard. I mean, imagine him getting switched up on Timmy.
No.
And that's a bad deal. I think Bishop's been great, but that's a hard assignment for him. Really, I like him. He's bouncy. He's good. Jefferson's okay. I mean, he's improved. He's fine. He's better. When he takes jump shots, you still feel like you won. Like I like Creighton. I would like Creighton in a bunch of other brackets. I'd love to see Creighton against Syracuse in that zone, right? Just bombing threes and Zagorowski getting in the lane and making plays against his half brother's old team, right? Like I would love to see that. I don't want to see him against Gonzaga like that. I don't see it. I see it as one of those games where like, man, this is fun. Both teams making shots, and then all of a sudden at some point, Creighton goes through a stretch where they can't score, they can't make a shot, and Gonzaga just keeps like Pleasantville-ing it and knocking it down. I would say, what's the line on that one? That's
13 and a half. 13
and a half.
That's a lot of points. Right. I feel like it's one of those where you're going to look up at the end of the game and it'll be 11 or 14 or something like that. And you're like, man, it felt like it was a closer game. That you're like, yeah, it was never really.
That was Oklahoma. That was kind of Oklahoma when they played.
Yes, that is exactly Oklahoma. Like, I love Austin Reeves. Like, he's a bucket. Like that. Yep. They play a fun style. Like, you're not beating Gonzaga playing that way. No way. You got to beat Gonzaga. You got to do Villanova. You got to do Loyola Chicago. You got to do what I think Baylor can do. Which is you got to slow that thing down, make them really guard. You got to be a little physical. Make Suggs settle for jump shots. Yep. Make them beat you in the half court because you ain't beating them in the full court. No chance.
Somebody, I got a text from a coach who asked, like, if your hair is a mohawk, if you have a mohawk right now.
No, it actually came out looking pretty good. Like
they were wondering.
I got the power alleys.
You really do. You're getting there. You're gonna look like Dockage soon. Dockage a year ago.
Why did you say that? Why do you say that?
I don't know. You're getting there. You're getting there.
Are you in Dockage? I mean,
no, I can't stand Dockage.
That's what we need now, Goodman, is your Dockage stories coming out.
Yeah,
all right, Doug. One more matchup, and then we can get you out here.
We should tell some stories here. We should tell some broadcasting stories.
We should. Yeah. First, First, I want to get you on a couple job openings because you got strong opinions.
I want to talk about the job. I want to talk about the Porter Moser thing and Indiana and Marquette. Okay, let me just ask you that before. Let me ask you the question. You're Porter Moser. Let's just say hypothetically. Marquette. Hold on.
Marquette.
Okay. You can stay where you are. That is an option.
No, it's not.
Why is it not an option?
Because they can't pay you. Marquette can pay you double.
Why can't they pay him? I know Marquette can pay. Okay.
Because Loyola doesn't have the money to pay him. Marquette has a huge budget. They can pay him
the third biggest budget in college basketball.
I don't think it's third anymore. I think it's flipped down to top 10-ish, right around there.
But the new guy will get a even bigger budget. So you could stay where you are and just be the Gonzaga of that league and make – what's he make?
It's more than $1 million now. More than $1 million.
Yeah, I think you could probably get him up to like 1.7 or something like that.
Okay. And listen, it's a private school. Right. I think they're okay, right?
Yeah.
So you could stay where you are and make $2 million, live in Chicago.
Yep.
Okay? Win 25 a year and build one of those programs.
Yep.
You go to Marquette, you could make 3.5 a year, maybe even more, get one of those life insurance deals, which are, elevated to like 4.5, 5 or whatever. Or you go to Indiana. You said Marquette. Why?
Well, I just think it fits him better. The institution fits him. Marquette and Loyola are similar institutions, right? Marquette obviously is in a bigger league. This is a guy who's 52 years old. This is probably his shot, right? He was fired from Illinois State. He was almost fired from Loyola. Like he was a year away from probably getting fired from Loyola, and then they flipped it and went to the Final Four 3 years ago. I think if you're Porter Moser, you say, like, and this is a job I'm told, according to sources, he has long coveted.
Yeah, it was Creighton, DePaul, and Marquette, right? Those are the jobs that I was told a long time ago. Those are his jobs.
And Marquette's a great job, especially to follow Wojo, who didn't win a tournament game in 7 years. Porter Moser's got the personality that Marquette will love. The other part is I don't think he'll keep his staff. Like, I think Porter's done a great job with his staff over the years. He had Brian Mullins on it, who got a head job at Southern Illinois. Now, I think if he leaves, I think Drew Valentine gets the job at Loyola Chicago, and I think he's terrific. Denzel's brother. Terrific. So I think he's had the right people on his staff, and I think he would find the right people to hire at Marquette. The big question for him would be, obviously, can he recruit at a high enough level in the Big East? I think he'd figure it out.
Rob, what would you do?
If I was Porter Moser, I would try to get as much money out of Marquette and Indiana as I could and stay at Loyola. Try to get as big of a deal, use as much leverage as I could, and try to stay at Loyola, become a legend.
He's already done it.
Work there for 15 years, build it into the Gonzaga of the Midwest. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. It's not all about money, Goodman. Some people find satisfaction in life that goes beyond money.
Listen. I was born in Milwaukee. I have a great affinity for Marquette. I almost went to Marquette with Mike Dean. Yeah. Mike Dean's such a good dude that when I told him I was going to Oklahoma State, he said, "Okay, but you're to come work camp next summer, right?" Like,
wow.
I went and worked camp.
Cool.
He's the best. Dino's the best. He's a crazy person.
Yes.
His favorite word starts with C and has an S in it as well. And he's got that crazy eye, but I love him. But that actually would be my third choice. I'll never forget this. Huey told me once, and this is before they kind of got it back, like really, really rolling. It was when a little bit of, not a woe is me or whatever, but one of those hiring cycles, I think is when they hired Kelvin. There was an Indiana plane waiting for him after practice, and he didn't get on it. And he's like, they only ask you once. And, and it's one of those things where, like, okay, so you basically have two choices here, and none of them are named Marquette, and here's why. If you get into this thing and you're Porter Moser, you've always wondered, like, what would it be like? I'm at Illinois State, and I'm fighting the Valley to get players. What would it be like to be Indiana and roll in and go, I'm fucking Indiana. I got 5 banners. I got candy striped pants. You just get better players, right? Which makes you look like a better coach. Plus, it's Indiana. And you were talking about following Wojo. Like, dude, look at all the guys you're following. They haven't had a dude. It's true. Indiana.
Yep.
The only one Indiana. Doing Indiana. Or I'm with Rob. Like, just stay and don't mess with Happy. That league is not nearly as good as it used to be, unfortunately. With Marquette, with Creighton and Wichita leaving, and you're the only one in Chicago. You're the only one that's gone to a Final Four. Might go to another one. Like, I think those are the two choices. I think, Marquette's in the Big East, but that doesn't. And they draw really well.
Yep.
But it's not like they're true rivals with anybody, right? They're just kind of in a league. It's a weird fit. I don't know. I think that's the third choice, even though most basketball coaches would probably say, hey, that's actually because the Big East is you don't have to actually get the McDonald's All-Americans compete at the Big East, right? I mean, that's one of the things about the Big East is it's become, it's Xavier. It's guys that people missed on a little bit, some maybe 1 or 2 really high-level recruits. And, they already have a Gonzaga, that league. They're named Villanova. Which you can compete with. Whereas the problem with the Big Ten is if your ego doesn't allow you to lose 10 games in a year, then you shouldn't go there because there are going to be, you're going against, Jawan now, you're going against Brad now, you're going against big boy back.
Here's why I wouldn't want Indiana, Doug, and why I wouldn't want to go there is because I feel like the rebuild is going to be like 3 or 4 years long at minimum to be able to get that thing going again. You're not just going to get 2 recruits in there and turn this thing around immediately, right? You need to rebuild the culture. You need to get old. You need to do all the things that we've seen successful programs like Baylor and Villanova and Gonzaga do over time. And I don't know if that fan base has the patience to give you 4 years to get that thing rolling again. Especially considering that the guy that they have there right now is basically the same profile of coach as the guy that they would be bringing in if they're bringing in Porter Moser.
So
right?
I disagree with that. I agree with almost everything you said except that last line. But go ahead.
Me too. He's wrong on that because their personalities, Archie and Porter, couldn't be more different. Archie had no interest in Bloomington.
I'm not talking about personality. I'm talking about the fact that you're bringing in a guy from like a mid-major plus level school that's had a lot of success, that had some success in the tournament, and you're bringing him in and you're expecting him to make it happen immediately in the Big Ten. And I just don't think it's going to. I think you need 3 or 4 years at minimum. And I don't know if the fan base is going to have the patience to be able to do that before they start putting pressure on you. And I don't know. It just seems like But you'll be making more money, but your level of happiness is going to be much, much higher, and you're going to be much less stressed if you're working at a place like Loyola where they love you, where you're going to be there forever. You could work there for 20 years. He'll never get fired from Loyola now, not if he brings him to a second Final Four. So that's kind of where I'm at.
All that stuff is, Rob, you're completely right with Loyola. You can do it your way. You can bring in your kind of kids. You can have a bad year and you can sit there and go like, hey, but I can sleep at night. I don't have any issues. I don't have agents running around my campus. It's great. But, I've sat and watched film with some of these guys, and they all say the same thing. Like, if I had those guys, if I had just, I would be a much better coach. And the ball goes to the basket more,
Mm-hmm.
And And look, this is the exact conversation that people had about Alabama football before they hired Nick Saban, right? Like, Alabama, they're back in the 60s and 70s. Like, the right dude gets it going. And I know that kids don't know how big the Indiana thing can be. I understand, because it hasn't really been in most of their lifetime, but the parents do, and you coaches do, and then just the proximity to players. And look, it's a really interesting one. And these are all good decisions for Porter Moser, because regardless, he's going to make more money next year. I just had this conversation like with all my friends, like, what would you do? And everybody kind of has. Rob says Loyola, Jeff says Marquette, and I think you do Indiana. Just think.
Well, I don't know if Indiana even wants him yet. That's the other part. Like, Indiana.
What are they waiting for?
They're poking around other people right now. They are poking around other people.
Mike
and
Woodson?
Mike Woodson, I think, is a backup. And I think a lot of that is probably to placate the old guard, right? The Quinn Buckners and whatnot of making sure, okay, we'll interview Mike Woodson and Keith Smart and some of these guys. But ultimately, I think Scott Dolson is smart enough to know that those guys aren't Juwan Howard. Like, Juwan Howard is the outlier here, not the norm. So don't think you're going to get, like, when you hire Mike Woodson, who's 62, and nobody knows who he is outside of Bloomington, that you're getting Juwan Howard, who played with LeBron James, played for the Fab Five, has a national profile. It's different. And he hired a great staff.
Yeah, I'm bummed that Fife's not going to get it. Doesn't feel like Fife's going to get a shot.
Fife should try to go as the coach in waiting if he's smart. If they ever hire a Woodson or Keith Smart, Fife should go.
I'm sure that's whoever it is plan, right? Is I'm going to bring back and
Mike Lewis or Fife.
I don't know if people understand what a benefit it is if you have a coach like Dane who's been in the league for as long as he's been in the league.
Yep.
Right. You have to have guys that understand the league, which you're playing against, who you're recruiting against, all the different little things. He's been a head coach. I don't know. It's like we're searching around for all these other guys, and he and Mike Lewis. I put them. I say, hey, you guys, Fife, you be the head coach. Lewis, you be the associate head coach, and like, let's go. I would be down for that. It's interesting. Like, do you think? What about Muss? I mean, he's been unbelievable. Or Nato, Midwestern ties.
Yeah, you just wonder how much. I feel like Muss is either you love him or you hate him, right? Either you want him or you.
But when they've been at their best, when they were at their best, that's what their head coach was like. Now, we do have a different view of Coach Knight now than 25 years ago. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, he was the biggest personality in the sport. And yeah, he had a fiery temper, okay, and he could treat people poorly, but he was also could be charming and engaging.
Really? When?
So,
When?
Before you started covering it. No, I'm serious, dude.
Really?
Yes. If you've ever, at the end, if you caught him on a good day, he was amazing. And then there were just a lot more good days back then. Goody. I'm telling you, dude. Like, he was a really engaging, funny guy.
So who would you compare him to? Like, who was he like in those days?
I mean, Cal and those guys.
Really?
He wasn't as good a dude as Self.
Yeah.
But he was like a Cal where, he all of a sudden you become an enemy for no reason. But he was a super charming, engaging dude. My dad actually was like a JV player in college when he was in college at Ohio State. So for example, he'd be out here recruiting, and my dad had gone to his clinics and known him forever, known him since college, whatever. And there'd be times in which he'd walk right by and wouldn't say a word. And then there were a couple of times when she called, Bobby, come over here, and he'd sit here and they'd talk for hours, and they're sitting there laughing. I mean, was a really charming dude.
All right,
all those guys had to be.
Let's steer it back. Let's steer it back to you and who you would hire. If you're Indiana right now, what would you do if you're Scott Dolson?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I told you I would have called me personally. I would have called Dane and said, "Show me your plan." Show me your plan. Because I would have you spend $10 million, save some money. Like, what's the difference? You got a guy who knows and loves the university. I think we do this thing. We have to go and get some big name to why? You got Crean. That didn't work.
Well, do you want Porter Moser? Would you take Porter Moser over Dane? Would you take Porter Moser?
Here's actually what I enjoy about Porter is he has been fired. Okay, he's been to the other side. So you guys have both asked him. He knows the pitfalls of it. I don't know if he knows the pitfalls of it at Indiana, but he's also been with Rick. So and he knows how Rick didn't treat people the right way, and he does the opposite of that. Right. So I actually like the failure in Porter's career, because the guys that just succeed everywhere, they all of a sudden they start quoting themselves and they become these caricatures. I think Nate would be awesome there. Awesome. And he's he's a Midwestern dude.
Yeah.
And think about the style he plays too, Jeff. What do they have in Indiana? They have shooters. What does Nate Oates want to do?
Just not at the University of Indiana. They have shooters everywhere.
Everywhere else.
None of them wear Hoosier jerseys.
Yeah, Nate would be great. I don't know what his buyout is. My guess is Greg Byrne was smart enough to have a pretty hefty buyout. But
he's just signed an extension, didn't he? In February?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
So Indiana can pay the buyout. If they had somebody write a check for $10 million, they'll have somebody that will say, you know what, if you can get Nate Oates, we'll write a check for the buyout.
Yeah, I would say those are a couple. I would like Muss for it. I think Muss it's really amazing though how you go back to before the Nevada thing and how he struggled to get a job, and even early at Nevada when he struggled to find a staff that kind of worked. I think bringing in David Patrick was brilliant.
Huge.
Brilliant.
Me too.
I would, if I hired Muss, I'd say, okay, you can only come, bring DP, pay him whatever, because it's just a good balancing there.
What about Beard, Scott Drew? What about Beard or Scott Drew?
Oh, wait, I forgot. I'm sorry. Wait, forget all that. Hire Chris Beard yesterday.
That's what I've said.
What's their deal? So this is the best thing, Rob, as you know about Jeff, is that he knows the answer, and sometimes he says it, whereas everybody else kind of tiptoes around things. Like, what is it? Is it because he likes to have beer?
I'll say it. I mean, I don't know the actual specifics to it, but I know when I asked that question to as high up a person as you can ask it to at UCLA, why UCLA wouldn't go after Chris Beard.
Yeah.
They talked about the skeletons in his closet. And that's the only.
What skeletons?
I don't know the specifics on that.
He got divorced. He's getting remarried.
Yeah, that's not it. I mean, that's stupid. Like that.
He likes to drink beer. He has no DUIs.
No. And he's mellowed on, and he was never Billy Gillespie. He was never Billy Clyde. And Beard, everybody likes Beard. Everybody likes Beard, and he's
amazing.
He's an amazing coach.
His practices, I told him this, his first year at Tech, I did a Cancun tournament, and it was at that Hard Rock Cafe, Hard Rock Hotel, whatever. But what was cool about it was, it wasn't one of these you had to get on a bus and go to it. It was literally right there. So I watched. They had the varsity. They also had a JV tournament, right, with the guarantee game teams, and they played. So I got to watch all these practices one day because I was solo, and I'd never seen his practice before the year before when they were at Little Rock, and it was so good, and his way of communicating was incredible, and that he has these eyes on me, and he has 7 or 8 trigger words that he says, and it was a coaching clinic. I was like, wow, this guy's unbelievable. He'll be so good, and we kind of spawned a friendship, and his attention to detail. Dude, the text I got, he's like, how many times do you see Utah State this year? I was like, 5 in person, and I've watched, I think, 7 or 8 on tape. And he's like, okay, send me everything you know. I was like, bro, I'm not on salary for you. So, but the text messages and the questions about their guys at 3 a.m. here, just that guy wants to win basketball games, and he's a much
Right.
He's a much easier to take version of Coach. I don't think he's what Coach Knight would be, but I don't know if you guys know this. When they go on the road, he always just gets one big room, right? And they tape off a thing, but then they just all hang out and watch ball and share ideas. He's brilliant. He's great. I have no negatives at all for Chris. Like, I didn't think their team was that good this year, and he's super pissed because he thinks they could have won the whole thing. They're just 1 or 2 possessions away. So yeah, if I could hire Chris Beard, but I don't understand why they haven't. I don't know what's holding them back.
No idea, Doug. I mean, no idea what it is specifically, but I would reiterate.
They're not cheating. They're not, and to people go like, well, they must be cheating. Like, well, they're not.
Right.
You know,
like I mean, they did
like Namari Burnett. They got, but he left. Like, if they were doing something illicit, you would have found out about it. Right. No, not cheating. You know,
no, Beard would be number 1 for me too. He would be number 1. I've already kind of said if they were going to go that route, they already would have gone the route of him and Scott Drew. And Scott Drew, you could have your reservations with him at Indiana. You definitely could. He's done an incredible job at Baylor from the state. His personality, if they're winning, would be great. But if they're losing and he's out there smiling like this, those fans would eat him up. They would hate him.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I also think that, like, why would you leave? You know, like, you got it rolling now.
You've been there a long time. It's just it's just our culture these days. You've been there a long time. Do you want to change at this point? And again, you grew up in Indiana, so like Brad Stevens, but Brad Stevens is now the Boston Celtics. Scott Drew's in Waco at Baylor. It's a lot different. If you're Scott Drew, that might have been a great job.
He grew up in Valpo, Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay, he didn't grow up in Indianapolis, and I get it, and that's like me and you. We grew up watching Indiana and when all that stuff. I mean, you know, I just think though that when you've been in a place where this was my thing with Brian Dutcher and why not to leave to go to Minnesota. Like, well, he's from Minnesota. Like, if he's been in California for 20 years, everybody in his family is in California.
Right, and you're not leaving.
Scott, for Scott, like, you know, you're not going back to anything. It's not. It's a place. It's where you grew up.
It's a better job. Wait. It's a better job, though. Indiana is a better job than Baylor. They don't show up for games at Baylor. Non-conference, you're not getting anybody there, Doug. Like,
agreed. And they're gonna build them a new place. I don't know if you saw they're building a new place. I agree. It's still a football town. It's still, you know, Texas, whatever. But
like, I'm not leaving San Diego for Minnesota at 60 years old or whatever Dutch is. And San Diego State, we both know their fan base is amazing. It's amazing. It's as good as Minnesota when you're winning.
Yeah, I mean, look, but there's a ceiling there to that job.
Yep.
You know, there's a ceiling to that job. But I think for if the argument for Baylor is, well, you could go win a national championship, like, bro, he can go win a national championship at Baylor. Why would you leave? I don't know. This would be, to me, like Rob's thing. It's a little different than Loyola Chicago, but like, I'm Scott Drew and my personality fits. Everybody knows me. I can take the kind of guys I want to take. You know, I don't have to meet new guys in recruiting. I don't know. I think he's good. I think he's in a good spot.
You also don't have to deal with the pressure of it either, Doug. Like, if you go to Indiana and you just make a tournament, then that's not going to be something that's acceptable. At Baylor, if you make a tournament, they're happy about it. He's made it to 2 Elite Eights. When else is Baylor going to ever make it to an Elite Eight? Under who? No one.
Plus, this is the difference in Beard and in Scott, right? Beard, it would eat him up inside, but he thrives on that shit, right? Like, and it's not that Scott's not competitive. Scott is competitive as hell. I have a pod I just dropped with Paul Mills, and he's like, this dude is his level of positivity, his level of energy for constantly getting better is amazing. Amazing. That said, I'm completely with Jeff on this one. Like, I know Scott behind the scenes is super, you know, has a different side, an edge to him, right? But he never lets that on display, and I just don't know how that plays in Bloomington, right? Like, coach, you just lost 3 in a row. Why are you smiling? It's like, you know, I mean, right? Whereas Beard loses 3 in a row, he's going to stomp off the court and go in and watch film for like 30 hours straight and figure it out and change lineups and change defenses. and that's what they want there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
You
look, I've
got
been happy
anything?
before, huh?
You got anything quickly before we go
I do
on
nothing quickly.
Utah? Do you know anything about guys? Alex Jensen, Johnny Bryant. You know anything about those NBA guys or not really? A little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was Alex Jensen's job.
I think it's going to be if he wants it. I think it is. And people rave to me about him, Doug.
Yeah.
Like great. Like George Niang's playing for him now. Absolutely loves him. Mike Gansey, who worked with him. He was, I think, their G League guy for a while, and he worked in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Raves about him. Like everybody I've ever talked to loves Alex Jensen. And he was in college. People forget. He played for Majerus. He coached in college for about 4 years. So I love that hire if they can make it.
What you'll find is, and this is the same thing with Porter, almost all those guys that played for Rick, I did a pod with Andrew Bogut, and he's like, it was so hard that every day you questioned yourself about whether you really loved basketball.
Really?
Right? It was that hard. But the net is you come out the other side and damn, you love and you have a master class of basketball. And the other thing is almost all those guys who have been through that treat people really, really well because Rick didn't,
They learn what not to do. Yeah.
They learn what to do, what not to, like, ooh. Yeah. Because, and Bogey told me this one too on the pod, which is great, which is like, even Rick himself, like after practice, he would know that he was over the top. And so he'd be completely over the top in terms of like almost kissing your ass and how are you? Let's go get something to eat. Let's go talk. How's your parents? And so I think a lot of those guys, and Alex is one of those guys, where you meet him, you're like, man, he's a Majerus guy. Like, get out of here. And they're doing a pretty good job in the NBA with what they're doing as well in terms of field.
Right.
Yeah. So look, that's a sneaky good job.
Yeah.
It's a hard league though now, really hard. I mean, does Bobby stay? What happens with Bobby? Because Bruno did everything.
Burno.
I'm sorry. Bruno did everything.
Right.
That's the job that you want is working for Bobby because Bobby, I know he's fiery as hell.
I was going to say, you want to work for Bobby?
If you have Bruno's job, dude, Bruno got to run stuff. He totally trusts him. Yeah. He was like mini head coach. I just, their guard you think. Anyway, that league's gonna be hard.
Listen, it'll be interesting to see, you hear rumors every day on Sean Miller. And obviously, I'm an Arizona guy. One day he's going to be fired. One day he's going to get an extension. Seriously, I've never seen anything like it because the money people want to keep Sean. There's too many people in Tucson. They want to keep Sean.
Why?
Listen, I he's done a good job with them, evidently.
I think Sean's an excellent coach. I think he's
Yes.
just not a great offensive coach, and he gets so tight. His teams play so tight in big spots. But I think he's a terrific coach. But again,
it's more that it's time. It's more that it's time to move on.
Right. Like even without the NCAA stuff, it's not like people would love their results, right?
Well, they wouldn't have had the results of the last 3 years. See, I would argue with that. Elite Eights, they didn't go to a Final Four. I get it. They've been close.
They were getting close, is what you're saying?
Yes. They were always in the mix. In the last 3 years, if this shit didn't happen, Sean would have them in the mix again and again and again. Maybe they wouldn't make one, but they'd be a top 10, 15 team every year if this stuff hadn't happened. But it did happen. So to me, the president, from what I'm told, he wants to make the move. He just can't right now or hasn't been able to.
Like only $1.5 million. Is it they can't get somebody to supposedly to pony up the money for a new guy? So, okay, let's just say it were to happen.
Chris Beard.
You think he go to Arizona?
I'd throw in some money, Doug. Whatever my paycheck is right now, I'd throw in some money for that one.
But why not Damon or Miles?
I like them both, but I would go Beard first. Beard's a proven head coach at a work.
If you get Chris, listen, any of these jobs, if you can get Chris Beard, you take him. You and I agree, right? Okay. Let's say you can't. When it's expensive, I know the buyout's not as much out of league as it is in league.
Yeah.
If you're advising, who do you? I think it's and I understand that when it goes bad with alums, it's really bad, right? Because now it's like, are they still? It's like you're hiring a family member, and now are we still family when you're firing them?
Right.
But I think there are instances like Juwan where you have guys that really want to be. It's not Clyde Drexler show up 5 minutes before the game.
No, Damon has worked. Like Damon has grinded it out. People don't understand. He started as a volunteer in college, making no money. He has been doing this how many years now, Doug? 10 years in college?
No, I remember Greg told me one time, my brother, he was like, dude, Damon Steinmeier's going to be a really good coach. I was like, how do you know? He's like, he was I went in some aux gym and we talked watching a game, everybody else in the main gym, and he's taking notes on every guy. Yeah. And he goes, that's the deal. That's the deal in this thing. Like everybody knows those guys in the other gym. You don't need to be there. You have to,
How much money did Damon make in his career? 100 million?
Yeah.
Right? And he's working.
Me personally, I would hire Miles.
I agree with Miles, and I am too. I just think Damon has been a head coach in college.
Head coach.
It would be hard and he's done a good job.
Agreed. It's a hard one and he's done a good job.
Yes.
But now he's got to get out of there because that league that's just hard, right? You're battling for third or fourth.
Top three. Right. You can't get in the top three there. Like you just can't. Resources wise. Where does Pacific rank in the WCC among all the jobs? Is it like bottom three?
Last.
It's last. Okay, it's last. Where's Portland?
Yeah, because you're in Portland.
Right. And Portland's got a good academic.
And they both have actually players that are kind of close, right? Portland's actually got in Vancouver, Washington has a lot of players, whatever. But Portland's no facility. There's some academic stuff. But Portland's
so you go Beard too. If you're Arizona and you make a move, you go Beard, take a swing at Beard. Now again, the hard part is if you're Chris Beard, you don't know if there's going to be another year postseason ban, so you probably don't take it.
I don't think that matters. Does anything that matters? Like if you're going to make the move to a big boy,
You think he might take?
Yeah, but if it's your first year, it doesn't matter. Your first year. Now his first year at Tech was really good because he had good players left behind.
Right.
And that shouldn't matter. 1 year of not doing it, I don't know. It gives it a chance to figure the place out, figure your team out. It's hard with ultra competitive guys, but you and I both hired Chris Beard to Indiana already, so he's not available for Arizona.
I'd hire him everywhere. I'd hire him not everywhere, but I'd hire him in places like Indiana, Arizona. If something ever happened with Bill Self at Kansas, any of those types of places to me.
Okay. Okay, let's go through the game. Can I do this again? Can you wake me up again and do this again?
Yeah, we'll do it again. We're at an hour and 15, so we're gonna wrap it now. But let's do it again when you actually wake up and
I'm
look
awake.
good.
Look at me.
Now you are. Now you're good. The first 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you were doing
my one eye was not open. It was like, what's
right. Exactly. People are like, is Doug awake?
Last night I decided I'm gonna do expense reports, and I had to do it on a computer instead of my iPad, where I had everything all lined out because my iPad got stolen, as we talked about. Anyway, because I don't lock my car, because I think it's Connecticut. I have a couple. I got a couple more for Rob. How close are we to UConn being back?
Oh man, I thought we had a shot this year. With book night gone, I don't know where they're going to be able to have any kind of creative outlet offensively. All you had to do this year was take away Book, switch on him, put someone that can guard him, make it hard for him, and they had no other options. They had no other answers.
But I mean, it's still pretty early in his run there, and they just got back to the Big East, which I think is great. Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, they're always going to play hard, and they're always going to crash the glass. You know what you're going to get out of a Dan Hurley team, but I mean, Book's obviously gone, and I don't know if they have someone coming in to replace that. And there's only so much you can do in a league as good as the Big East if all you can do offensively is go get offensive rebounds and push in transition and try to make things ugly. So, I mean, we saw it against Creighton when they put Mahoney on them. We saw it against Maryland when they switched everything and put Marcel on them. And just when you take away all those other guys, or when you take away Booknight and all those other guys are forced to make something happen, they didn't have anything. And now that Book's gone, I just don't know I don't know where it's going to come from moving forward. So that's my biggest concern. He's got a lot of athletes. I don't know how many shot makers he's going to have next year.
He needs to do a little bit better basketball play.
Yep.
I would agree. I would also say though that this is going to be a crazier year than even normal with the transfers.
Yep.
And guys being able to play right away. So I mean, you can fix a problem or create new problems by bringing in dudes. But like we need, all three of us, we love this sport. Like for this sport to be right, we need to get UConn going again, right?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I'm there.
It gives it. You know, I mean, really, we need Syracuse back in the Big East, to be totally honest with you. Like, that needs to happen. I don't know how you do it with the TV contract.
Georgetown's back.
So now, how much time does that buy him?
A couple of years.
Yeah.
A couple of years. You know, I still say they finished 8th in the league.
Right.
Like, they had a good 4 days. They had a really good 4 days.
Yeah.
I'm still not buying, like, they're going to – I think this will help them, though, with recruiting. I do. I think he needs to shake up his staff a little bit. Like, I love Moser, but, like, you got to get some dudes on there that can really recruit.
Yep, you got to get dudes. Okay. What about Xavier? What happened there? Like, Marquette's going to get a shot in the arm from whoever they hire, I would guess. That league, I mean, this was a year in which that league, you feel like Butler's down. Butler's down. You know,
Providence down.
You know, yeah, that one's a weird one. What about Xavier, guys? Like, what happened there?
I think that the pause really messed with them. They went through like a 32-day stretch where I think they had one game or something like that, and they were good before. You know, they were spacing the floor, and the Scruggs kid was having his best season there, and they were making shots. And who was the I'm blanking on his name.
Fremantle.
Yeah, Fremantle had a really good season. So I don't know. I'm willing to give Travis a pass on that one on the way it ended, just because it felt like they had something going a little bit, and then everything got paused and shut down, and they couldn't quite find it again afterwards.
They go into year 4 next year, though. Think about that. Travis Steele. Now, the big thing for Travis Steele, there's a lot of money in that family. So I don't think they're going to fire Travis Steele after year 4. I think he'll get one more. But if you're Xavier, you've never dealt with this. Like, you're used to going to the tournament every single year and having a chance. And Travis can recruit. Like, that's never been the problem. He was the guy who's doing the most of the recruiting for Chris Mack, and they were doing a good job. So I'm kind of with Rob here. I thought they lost all their momentum. So I think this year is such a tough year, Doug. Even like with Arch, I get it, because you didn't see the future getting better for Indiana under Arch. So I'm like okay with them firing him. I'd rather they kept him for another year, but I understand that one. With a lot of these, I just feel like it was such a tough year to penalize these coaches this season. To me, like fire Jim Christian. He was going to be fired last year. Fire Jeff Neubauer. He was going to be fired last year. But like some of these dudes that you're firing, even like Wojo, in a way. Like Wojo next year, if he kept everybody together, could they have pulled like some version of what Shaka did this year? Maybe. Other than the Abilene Christian part.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I agree with you guys on Xavier. The Wojo thing, like I like Steve. I don't understand. Once he lost the Hausers, that was a really, really hard one, right? I mean, he thought
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. That was something was amiss there.
Yep.
And how about Dwayne getting a job? Dwayne Killing's getting a job like a week before that happened. Like, that's amazing for him.
Yes.
I'm really happy for him.
DePaul, Kenny Payne or Dennis Gates? If you're choosing and you're Dwayne Peavy at DePaul, where do you go with that? And then we're done. Then we're done.
Dennis Gates.
Okay. All right, we're done. We're out, Gottlieb. We'll do it again next week. We'll do it again after
you put my dog to sleep.
Elite 8 games. The dog's sleeping.
Yeah, he's out. He was actually snoring. I was like wondering if you guys could hear it. He was snoring. No, it's not me.
I thought it was you earlier.
Yeah, so next time I get up, I have a cup of coffee, and then I join you, and then I pop in.
That would help. I mean, we
I thought it was good early on. I mean, I thought I have to sleep.
You're drowned out by the guy mowing the lawn outside of my residence inn. So, all right, thanks, Doug. We'll talk to you next week.
My pleasure.
Later.